Welcome, loyal viewers, and also welcome to you disloyal viewers. And yes, I'm talking about you, and you, and you. Today we have an amazing story today because it has so many twists and turns, so many turns and twists. You will feel all turned and twisted after I break all these facts down for you, and of course, that is in reference to what went on with Paul Pelosi when somebody allegedly broke into the home and assaulted Paul Pelosi, possibly looking for Nancy Pelosi. Now, obviously, we condemn violence in the strongest terms over here on the Actual Justice Warrior channel. It's actually quite serious that third in line for the presidency, the Speaker of the House, was actually made vulnerable, or her husband was made vulnerable, due to a crazy person breaking into the home. So, as of right now, as of this moment, obviously, I hope that Paul Pelosi has a speedy recovery. May he be drunkenly driving down the streets of San Francisco again real soon. Let us all pray that he fully recover so that he can do what he loves, which of course is drunkenly driving down the streets of San Francisco and putting everybody in danger. But before we get into this, we actually have a sponsor, a very appropriate sponsor for today's video, because if they had the camera bulb, then we would have seen all of this action in high quality footage. So let me toss it over to our timely sponsor, then we'll talk about it on the other side. A shocking report shows us that burglaries are up 35%, and considering burglary has one of the lowest clearance rates of any crime, that's not good. That means people are breaking into your homes more, and they're not getting caught. And considering they do on average, in terms of damage and theft, $2,800 worth of harm each and every time, it's important that you help yourself gather the evidence necessary in order to prosecute these criminals. This is one of the reasons why I'm partnering with CameraBulb.com, because this little stealthy camera can help bring justice in case the worst case scenario follows you. You plug this right into your light bulb slot, works on Wi-Fi so you can monitor it from anywhere, and there's an SD card slot, meaning you can store hours and hours of high quality footage used to turn into evidence in order to protect yourself in case the worst case scenario falls upon you. Now, if you're interested in the camera bulb, you can go to CameraBulb.com, get yourself 65% off, 30-day free trial. Trust me, you won't regret it. So recently, news broke that there was a break-in at Nancy Pelosi's residence. Yes, this is the residence where she has the really expensive refrigerator and the really expensive ice cream during her whole stay home, it's COVID thing, if you remember that. And Paul Pelosi, Nancy Pelosi's husband, was in the home at the time of this alleged break-in, and the perpetrator apparently had a hammer and started hitting Paul Pelosi with the hammer, which sent him to the hospital. Now, I do want to point out that we do have a suspect in custody. There have been charges filed, and those charges are quite serious. And if you're a resident of San Francisco, you might be a little off-put by how serious those charges are. The person who broke into the home is actually being charged with first-degree attempted murder, on top of a bunch of other felonies that were included. It is a man called David DePape, who is 42, apparently an illegal immigrant, apparently from Canada, aka the worst place on planet Earth, and he supposedly did this, according to the mainstream media, because he was all ginned up on right-wing hysteria, and obviously was an ultra-MAGA super Trump kind of guy. Now, we're gonna get into how ridiculous those claims are going forward, but I just want to point out that whatever this person's mishmash ideology actually is, it is a serious situation, and if it is true that somebody broke in looking for Nancy Pelosi and attacked her husband, my heart goes out to the family because, like I said before, it's not a good thing in the country for the Speaker of the House to be vulnerable in this way. Just like it was not a good thing for the country when Steve Scalise, the majority whip, was shot at during a practice for the congressional baseball game by a deranged Bernie Sanders supporter. And everybody should go out of their way to condemn this person and their actions, because Bernie Sanders, give him credit, he did condemn those people that day for what happened to his colleagues. So, it's a bad situation. We all agree it's a bad situation. There are some amusing elements of it, and also there's competing narratives, because when you look into David DePape, what you end up finding out is that it's not a straight line right-wing attack on Nancy Pelosi, like many people in the mainstream media assumed and now are actively lying about in order to get that out there. It seems like this guy has a very checkered political past, mostly on the left wing, but he has recently posted stuff that's anti-COVID and stuff related to the 2020 election, so all of that should be taken in its totality when determining what the motivation was. And I actually found a very interesting article on theinternet.com that essentially argues that this was more of a drug-induced psychosis more than anything, and Pelosi, being famous, just happened to be the target of that psychosis. So one of the things that you find out when you look into David DePape is he has a long history of left-wing activism and left-wing posts. Apparently, he was dating and or married to and or maybe had a child with or 2 children with, actually that part is confirmed, a nudist activist. And when the FBI raided his home of this alleged right-winger, you saw a lot of memorabilia that clearly indicated left-wing causes. You have the gay rights flag, you have other signs being posted in the windows that all indicate that this guy was on the fringe left wing, at least at some point in his life. These were his political views actually were. Now, it's been reported by people who do not check their facts very well that he had praised Castro or he was pro-Castro or something related to Fidel Castro, but let me clarify this exact portion of the news so you don't get caught repeating bad information. He once attended a nudist protest with his girlfriend, who was a nudist activist, in the Castro district of San Francisco, which of course has absolutely nothing to do with Fidel Castro. Please do not repeat bad misinformation because it makes you look ridiculous and then other people can undercut you by pointing this out. Now, he was in bad shape. Apparently, he lived in a bus or in a broken down camper van from time to time where he used drugs over and over again, mostly psychedelic, including a drug I've never heard of called ibogaine. Now, neighbors did describe him as a homeless addict because he was living in a bus on the property or near the property or broken down camper van on the property or near the property, but they also do say that he is left-wing up until very recently. But more importantly, they talked about his psychotic and paranoid behavior. That's the thing that really stuck out to them more than the politics. So Black Lives Matter sign in the building, on the home where he used to live, gay pride flag, all of that, that's there. But the issue that the neighbors really harped on was the detachment from reality due to the drug use. And to give credit to CNN, they actually went and talked to people who knew DePape, and they did report that people who knew him for over 10 years saw him more as a crazy person rather than a political activist. Laura Hayes, who worked with him for 10 years making hemp bracelets, which is very hippy-dippy kind of stuff, said that he told her that he talks to angels, and he told her there would be hard times coming. So this is a guy that has a lot of cryptic, weird, crazy kind of things. So all of this right here seems very suspicious and runs very contrary to the idea that this was some MAGA Trump ultra hysterical person that wanted to go after Speaker Pelosi. That being said, we've actually seen a lot of people that are on the far left that think Nancy Pelosi is too right-wing, and they despise her for those reasons. In fact, there are many people that probably have no connection to this dude that consider themselves on the left and consider this guy to be a right-winger, like Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, who hold a very similar disdain for establishment Democrats like Nancy Pelosi and talk about them as if they're hurting the country. So, for a lot of this person's life, he likely would not have liked Nancy Pelosi from the left side of the political spectrum. However, we did see a lot of anti-lockdown stuff, we did see a lot of complaints around COVID, and we did see a lot of complaints around the election. And for the most part, these things come from the American right wing or the right wing in countries across the world. Not saying that there isn't a small contingent of left-wingers that also agree on those specific things, but overall, you seem to see that this comes from the American right wing. However, this guy might fall in that category. It is reported that he was into Tulsi Gabbard and other figures that are on the left but pretty far left, although Gabbard has recently made a U-turn to the right wing. And those people are against what we were talking about, although Tulsi Gabbard doesn't really talk a lot about the 2020 election, and she in fact endorsed Joe Biden, if you can remember, before she decided to recently change parties. So again, all over the place. The guy was a fan of people that are all over the place, if you actually look into it, but mostly on the left wing. In fact, his girlfriend, which I think their breakup is what actually precipitated maybe his psychosis, was not only a nudist activist, but she was also arrested for soliciting sex for a minor in the past, and they had recently broken up, and considering he was living with that girl, and they seem to have 2 kids, this obviously created a lot of problems. There was actually an interview from a neighbor who described these people as very left-wing, but very weird and unusual, and not the typical neighbors that you'd want to live next to, especially in a lefty city like San Francisco. This is notable because obviously it wouldn't be the left-wing politics per se that would be putting somebody like this off. It would likely be the fact that these people were just weird and crazy and used drugs and did all kinds of crazy stuff overall.
Anything strange about him or anything that stood out?
There's something strange about the whole household. The entire household is very, very strange.
How about him?
He is birds of a feather with akin to them. So they are just, nudist drug abusers, and that's who gravitates toward them.
And the children who live there seem to be underage or under 18.
I'm not sure how old they are.
Okay.
And Tricia, again, what do you say their politics are?
I'm not sure. I would imagine that they're more left-leaning because of their support for the gay community and for, for other people. But it is... now I'm not sure what way they lean because
they have the flag, the LGBT flag with the pot.
Yeah.
So.
But any signs of anti-Semitism?
They are completely unhinged, so I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Yeah.
Nothing that they believe in aligns with their actions. So they'll say that they are, pro-Black lives, and then they'll call the police on Black people. Mm-hmm. And so they don't stand by their actions, don't stand by their words.
So some paranoid behavior, it sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some psychotic behavior too?
Yes.
Okay.
Was that also demonstrated when David was the president, or was that times when...
Yeah, it's never changed.
And the reason I'm bringing all of this up is because what's happening is a narrative is forming that this guy was definitely on the right wing. He was definitely inspired by Donald Trump or MAGA politicians or similar, and that is just not the case. And the media is putting forward ridiculous evidence to assert this, while simultaneously ignoring actual evidence. So we knew a lot about the nudist activism related to this guy relatively soon. We were able to get a good picture of what he believed for the overwhelming majority of his life, and it really does look like this guy just happened to have a psychotic break if you believe the break-in version of events. And I will get into the idea that maybe Paul Pelosi knew this person before because of the fact that he was allowed to go to the bathroom to call 911 in order to get help because he said he had to use the bathroom, and it seemed like the person who broke in was allowing him to do that. Now, that being said, this guy is clearly not mentally sound. He was clearly heavily using drugs. He's clearly experiencing huge forms of psychosis. So when you break in and you're looking for Nancy Pelosi and you find her husband and you got a hammer in your hand and he says, "Can I use the bathroom before you attack me?" This might be something that somebody who's out of their mind might actually let happen. And Paul Pelosi actually did stay on the phone throughout the course of these events, and it appears this person only really attacked when he realized the police were coming forward. So maybe he was actually legitimately looking for Pelosi, maybe he's actually legitimately out of his mind, or maybe this is just some kind of dispute between people who may have known each other, but I have to point out, there's not a lot of evidence to really say that, especially when you factor in the overwhelming evidence of this guy having some kind of drug-induced psychotic break. But while I am open to evidence, while I want to see the information so I can make my judgments, and overall, obviously, I'm not in favor of the attacks, no matter who is perpetrating the attacks, the media is not in that same camp. The media is dead set on putting out a narrative because the media is following suit of the Democratic Party. Joe Biden gave the absolute dumbest, worst speech that shows that the Democratic Party thinks so little of their voters. It's actually stunning. If you believe, based on what Joe Biden said, that this guy was somehow connected to January 6th, you deserve to never have the right to vote ever again because you're just that stupid. Let me play you his quote so you can hear it for yourself and tell me if this makes any sense.
While this invasion is ongoing, the news reports indicate it was intended to be an attack on the house Nancy Pelosi lives in, the third ranking person in the United States in line to be president. You know, It's reported that the same chant was used by this guy they have in custody that was used on January 6th in the attacks on the U.S. Capitol. I'm not making this up. This has been reported. I can't guarantee it. I can tell you what's being reported. The chant was, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" This is despicable. There's no place in America. There's too much violence, political violence, too much hatred, too much vitriol.
So Joe Biden, the President of the United States of America, the 46th President of the United States of America, said that this guy was making references to January 6th, reportedly. And he's like, now look, these are just reports. They're not confirmed, but I'm going to tell you what's reported. Now, again, if you're trying to heal the country, bring it together, say that we all don't tolerate these political attacks, maybe it's not a great idea to just repeat things that you heard reported. Maybe you should actually, zero in on the facts of the matter or wait for the evidence before condemning the other side. Maybe you should go out of your way to praise Republicans that wished Pelosi a extra well recovery and all that jazz, just like a lot of people went out of their way to praise Bernie Sanders for wishing them a recovery after the congressional baseball shooting. But instead, Biden not only shoots off the mouth, but he says the absolute dumbest quote of all time that apparently is a callback to January 6th only if you've had a lobotomy or you're somebody as demented as Joe Biden, which is, of course, "Where is Nancy?"
It's reported that the same chant was used by this guy they have in custody that was used on January 6th in the attacks on the U.S. Capitol. I'm not making this up. This has been reported. I can't guarantee it. I can tell you what's being reported. The chant was, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?"
Now look, I don't doubt, because on January 6th, where were you January 6th? I was in a car dealership trying to buy a car, and the guy at the car dealership tried to tell me that frame damage wasn't serious damage while he was trying to sell me the car. And then I looked at the car, and then all of a sudden I looked up and I saw on the TV our republic getting frame damage as the seat of democracy was attacked by violent insurrectionists. Where were you January 6th? Where were you? I was in a car dealership trying to buy a car. Now look, I don't doubt that at some point in time, because there's actual videos of people from January 6th in Nancy Pelosi's office, that somebody uttered the phrase, "Where is Nancy?" I don't doubt that at some point in time that a bunch of people might have even chanted at some point during January 6th, "Where is Nancy?" Because Nancy Pelosi is the Speaker of the House, and they all showed up to protest a congressional action, and as the Speaker of the House, she would be somewhat affiliated with that congressional action. However, to claim that "Where is Nancy?" is somehow a callback in all circumstances to January 6th is patently absurd and idiotic. When Nancy Pelosi shows up late to a fundraiser and when somebody asks, "Hey, where's Nancy?" do you think that her staffers call the FBI and say, "Oh my God, this person is doing a callback to January 6th. Where were you January 6th? I was in a car dealership trying to buy a car." Absolutely not. That is not what happens. You think when somebody shows up at Nancy Pelosi's house with a UPS delivery and they say, "We have a delivery for Nancy Pelosi," and somebody else answers the door and they say she's not in right now, and then they say, "When is she in?" that people are like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. Did you just say, 'Where is Nancy?'" And then they call the FBI, SWAT team goes after the UPS guy. Obviously, if anybody, for any political reason, whether connected to January 6th or not, was looking for Nancy Pelosi, or even non-political reasons, and they didn't find her, a standard question in that moment is, "Where is Nancy?" If you find her husband when you expect to find her, and you definitely want to find her, you're obviously going to ask her husband where she is. I don't understand how people can legitimately play this video and say, "Oh my God, the President of the United States just identified something that was said in January 6th that was also said in this instance." Paul Pelosi said, "I need to go to the bathroom." I bet you that at some point in time, somebody during the January 6th event also had to go to the bathroom, and they said, "Where's the bathroom?" or "Can I go to the bathroom?" or "Is there a bathroom?" Oh my God, bathroom talk. Paul Pelosi must be in on the January 6th insurrection on Nancy Pelosi.
It's reported that the same chant was used by this guy they have in custody that was used on January 6th in the attacks on the U.S. Capitol. I'm not making this up. This has been reported. I can't guarantee it. I can tell you what's being reported. The chant was, "Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy? Where's Nancy?" This is despicable. There's no place in America. There's too much violence, political violence, too much hatred, too much vitriol. And what makes us think that one party can talk about stolen elections, COVID being a hoax, there's all a bunch of lies, and it not affect people who may not be so well balanced? What makes us think that it's not going to corrode the political climate?
This is such a stupid statement. It's such a stupid non-point. It's insane that it was uttered, and yet we have to deal with it from the President of the United States as if it's something normal. And by the way, it actually gets much, much dumber because another person, verified on Twitter, decided it would be a good idea to post about a joke made in 2010 about the size of Nancy Pelosi's gavel when she had to hand it over to John Boehner after the Republicans came into power on the Tea Party wave, and somebody somewhere said Boehner should clock her with the big gavel. Therefore, this guy, 12 years later, apparently was using that as his guide, and that's why he chose the weapon of a hammer. Honestly, seriously, stop, cut it out, don't be ridiculous. These are the same exact people in the media that downplayed the person who came up on stage with one of those cat ear defensive brass knuckle things and tried to clock Lee Zeldin with that. Those sharp things, you remember the photo I showed you, Zeldin grabbing the hand, totally epic by the way. Legend of Zeldin, definitely go out and vote for him if you live in New York. These are the same people who are just doing this with the whole, oh, this hammer joke was made 12 years ago. Oh, they said, where is Nancy? Therefore, that's a callback to January 6th. It's an organized conspiracy. Please ignore the fact that this guy has the gay pride flags. Also, we have hot mic moments of the media deliberately not reporting stuff, and we hear them getting the orders from the producers not to do so. Check out this hot mic moment of somebody in the press.
Okay, so is this the dude that was a former, nudist dude? Okay. Yeah, okay. Is it okay to say any of that stuff? No? Yeah, all right, cool. All right, so, but we kind of have a working knowledge of who this guy may be. Hang on one second. Let me go see what they've got over here. I'll call you back. Bye.
Yeah, you heard that right. This person is talking to somebody, asking if he should include everything they found out because they have a good idea of who this guy is, specifically about the connection to nudist activism, and they're saying, no, leave that out. That's not the story that we're going with. Look, this could have happened pretty much as described initially in the police reports. You have the arrest, you have the charges, whether or not attempted murder fits, again, depends on the extent of the injuries, etc., but that part could have happened, but everything around this is total nonsense. Everything around this is a complete and utter hoax, and it's embarrassing. Now, the latest update to this story is, in fact, the 911 dispatcher call. In fact, I had to re-record this portion of the video so that I can include it, and yeah. So, here it is. It's not Paul Pelosi, it's the dispatcher relaying information from Paul Pelosi to the officer that's going to respond to whatever's going on.
A priority 910, 2640 Broadway, cross of Scott and Normandy. I have a 14-hour copy. RP stated that there's a male in the home and that he's going to wait for his wife. RP stated that he doesn't know who the male is, but he advised that his name is David and that he is a friend. RP sounded somewhat confused. 12 over back and copy.
Units code 3 to 2640 Broadway for 14 hours.
Cover 12 over copy. 15 hour also code 3.
Cover 112 advising sufficient units on scene 2640 Broadway. Special call medic 66, location 2640 Broadway.
Now, a lot of people have taken this to make the case that this was some kind of gay encounter gone wrong because Paul Pelosi, apparently, according to people's interpretation of this, said that he didn't know the guy, but then admitted that it was his friend named David. Now, my reading of this is actually a bit different. I ignore the caption and just interpret it on my own, and I think what this caller is indicating is that Paul Pelosi said that he didn't know the guy, but the guy told him his name was David and he's a friend, which, considering David's crazy, makes a lot of sense. And as for the gay encounter argument, Paul Pelosi could get a better gay guy than some homeless drug addict who's 42 years old, if that were the case. And there's no evidence that David, as of right now, is any kind of gay, and we do have evidence of a break-in. Here's an overhead shot of the back window at this place. So I'm not really buying it. There's also a report about somebody who came to the door, and maybe this is an anonymous third person, but honestly, this is a report, and it was not included in the police statement at all. So take it for what it's worth. I'm including it here. I gave you my interpretation of it. Obviously, people are running wild. They're saying it's a hookah gone wrong. They're going off of that report that this guy was apparently in his underwear. But, you know, that's really on you guys to decide. Now, if there is an update about some kind of personal relationship between Paul Pelosi and this person, I will talk about it in a future video. But since that's not verified, since that's not proven, and since it seems to be being thrown out specifically as a nasty rumor to counter other nasty rumors at this time, I will wait on the evidence for that situation. Also, there are reports of no evidence of forced entry or other things like that. So again, we will wait on those updates when they're made clear by the police department, because the police seem to be clarifying things that are being put out of the media in a more accurate way, which, by the way, we should give them credit for. But as of right now, I wish Pelosi's husband a speedy recovery. I don't want him to be hurt or anything like that. I was only joking about his joy of being back on the streets, drunk driving and hitting people. Obviously, I don't want him to do that. I hope he straightens out his life. But those are where my thoughts are going to end. If you like this video, then show him by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on all my social media, support me via the support links in the description box of the video. This has been me talking about the Paul Pelosi thing. Till next time.